Layman and friends. Thank you. That was beautiful. Happy Valentine's Day. So love liberates. Love has the ability to take us to new heights and to take us on a journey that we had never possibly foreseen. And the truth is we cannot enter into any kind of a relationship without being changed. Today we celebrate love. So I want to begin by exploring a little bit of the roots of Valentine's Day, which always, these holidays that we have always seem to have their roots in paganism. This one is no different. And it actually begins with a holiday that is called Februalia. Februalia. Sounds like February, right? And it's a Roman tradition, a Roman festival of cleansing and purification. It is the time of year when the Romans would clean out their homes, salt it, and purify. The word fever has a bit of the idea of purification. So we have purification. So from this festival, another one emerged, and it was Lupercalia. And Lupercalia then took all the Februalia stuff and added to it, and it also became a festival of purity, only this time it's purifying the city. It is a pastoral festival. The idea is to release health and fertility, and one of the rituals was the men would wear goat skins and be like Pan, and they had animal skins that they would hit the women's palms with, and it was to ensure fertility. It is said that the single women would put their name in an urn, and the bachelors would pull out a name, and that was the person that they were destined to marry. So it's kind of an early eHarmony or matchmaker or something like that. So the Christians, as they had a habit of doing, is to take the festivals that were already in place, because this took place between February 13th and February 15th, and make it their own. Now, St. Valentine was executed on February 14th, and there's different stories about him. One is that he was a priest who would marry people secretly, who were the church did not want to be married. Another is that he helped the persecuted Christians. It is said that he had a relationship, whether it was a love relationship or just a mentor relationship, with the jailer's daughter. And the night before he was executed, he sent her a note and signed it, "From your Valentine." And ever since then, we have been sending Valentines to one another to express our love, to express our appreciation of each other. Now, like Mother's Day and like Father's Day, I think that Valentine's Day can be a really loaded day, can it? I mean, if you're in a good relationship, boy, this is a wonderful holiday. We got to celebrate Mike and Diane, but if you've just broken up or divorced or your loved one has just died, not such a great holiday, right? Or you're alone, like, I don't know if I'm ever going to meet anybody. So it's kind of this holiday that is charged with lots of different emotional energy. And the truth is that it isn't limited, Valentine's Day, as we have seen in the dances and in the music, that it isn't limited to an intimate relationship. It is an opportunity to express love to our friends, to our children, to our family, to our coworkers, and to send out Valentines. It's a wonderful tradition to send out our love. So I thought that it would be good, because it is Valentine's Day, and since we're studying, archetypal patterns this year, to look at not only the archetypal patterns, but archetypal events. And these are sort of universal events that happen to all of us. They're a pattern. And what better archetypal event or pattern to explore today, but then the story of Psyche and Eros. So I'm just warning you that I'm going to tell you a story. It's going to go on for a little bit, so I need your attention. But the story needs to be told in its wholeness in order for us to get the lessons and the messages from the story. Psyche in Greek means soul. It also means butterfly. So when we tell the story of Psyche and Eros, truthfully, we're also telling the story of our own soul's transformation, our own soul's unfoldment, and our own soul's journey. Psyche was the most beautiful young woman in her town. And truthfully, she fits the archetype more of an innocent, but she was this beautiful, beautiful maiden. And all the guys would fall in love with her and follow her around, but she was so innocent that she wasn't even aware of it. She had no clue. Meanwhile, her sisters are getting married, and the men are following her around, but nobody would approach her. And Aphrodite got very jealous about this because the men stopped worshiping in her temple, and instead, they started worshiping Psyche. So Aphrodite, being the jealous type, decided to get her revenge, and the parents are like, "Why is my daughter not getting married? We don't understand it. She's so pretty." So the parents go to an oracle to find out what to do. Now, the deal is, if you go to an oracle, you have to do what the oracle says, regardless of whether it's good or bad news. And the oracle says, because the oracle is influenced by Aphrodite, your daughter must marry a monster. Sorry, but that's the way it is. So the parents are like, "Oh, great. We've agreed to this. We have to do it. We don't want to do it." So they're crying and and they take her. And they tie her up. Different stories say it's either the top of a mountain or a cave, regardless. So she's tied up, and she's waiting for the monster to come get her. Well, Aphrodite's son, whose name is Eros, he's the guy, he's got little arrows. She sends him down to prick her with an arrow so that she'll fall in love with the monster, but he accidentally pricks himself. And he falls madly in love with her, and he whisks her up to his palace. And his palace is opulent, and it's got servants and food and everything you could possibly want. The only thing is that she never actually ever sees him during the day. He comes and he visits her every night, and then he leaves in the morning, and he visits her every night, and he leaves in the morning, and she never gets to see him. And so this is great. Now, does this not tell the story of you falling in love? Or of anybody falling in love? What happens in the initial stages? You sort of lose each other, right? You don't see, and it's like you're cocoon yourself off, and you're the only two people in the world. And then Psyche gets lonely, and she wants to see her family and her friends because she's cut off from everybody. And finally, she convinces Eros to bring her sisters. So her sisters come, and they look around, and they're like, "Hey, it's a pretty nice place you live in. I mean, really, you have everything you need. You have servants. It's all opulent." And then they are jealous, and they start asking questions. Who is this guy? Have you ever actually seen him? What does he do for a living exactly? And how do you know that he's not the monster? If you've never seen him, he probably is the monster. And I think what you need to do is when you go to bed this night, you need to bring an oil lamp and a knife, because if it's the monster, then you can cut off his head. So when we look at this story, when we first fall in love, there's this bliss, right? It's just the two of you. And then all of a sudden, you have to meet the friends. Or you have to meet the family, and all of a sudden questions are being asked, and you're like, maybe I didn't see that, of course, at first. I remember when I was 20 and I was dating a jazz musician, and he was great, and I brought him home for Christmas, and my mom takes me in the kitchen and she says, "Karen, he's really cute and he's really funny, but don't marry him." And it's that moment, right, of when you bring your love home or to your friends for the first time, and the reality starts to set in. You start to see things that maybe you had not seen. So here she is with her oil lamp and her knife, and in the middle of the night, she turns on the oil lamp, and she holds it over him so she can see him, and she burns him with the oil. And he sees the knife, and he flies away. The knife and the lamp. So the knife and the lamp symbolize the idea of going from an unconscious relationship to a conscious relationship, to being able to see. Jean Shinoda Bolen says it this way. They say to her, you must take a lantern and a knife. The two symbols that really matter to us, the lamp and the knife, are this. If you're going to examine the relationship that you're in, then you need both. The first step is the willingness to take a look at the situation. You need the illumination of the lamp. This symbolizes your willingness to actually take a good look at the person that you're working with, or that you're living with, or the person that you're involved with, so that you can answer that question. So the lamp is important. But what good is the lamp if you don't have the knife? Because this is a symbol that can discriminate, cut through the situation, end the relationship by severing its bonds. What good is it knowing that you are in a very dysfunctional relationship if you haven't the capacity, that is the symbol of the knife, to draw a boundary, to discriminate, to cut off, to end, if it turns out that what you see is negative? How many relationships end right there? Where you know, like you watch people, they fall madly in love, the light goes on, the knife, boom, out of here, on to the next one. Fall in love, da-da-da-da, same thing, on to the next one. So this is a very important step in the archetypal event, in the archetypal pattern of falling in love, because now she has made the transition from being unconscious to being conscious. And if we look at it as the soul, she's gone from being unconscious to being conscious. So she is totally bereft because he's left her, totally bereft, and she wails and cries. She's kind of a crybaby, and she goes to all the gods and goddesses looking for help, and everybody's like, you know what? This is Aphrodite's situation. He's her, she's your mother-in-law. So if you got issues, you got to go talk to her. So she goes to Aphrodite. Aphrodite says, all right, if you want Eros back, you have 4 tasks that you must do. And she's like, oh, I can't do any of them. And she throws herself into the river, and the river throws her back out. And Aphrodite puts her in a room with all these seeds in it, barley and wheat and lentils and who knows what beans. And they're like, okay, it's all mixed up. And she goes, you have to sort this out by morning. And she's like, oh, I can't do it. And she's crying in the corner and crying in the corner. And then the ants show up, and the ants do it for her. And so the next day that the task is done. So this symbolically means, so this is an interesting pattern, because one of my teachers was telling the story of a friend of hers who had been married forever and then got a divorce, and she was really a capable person. She had her own business. She was very prosperous, successful, moved into a condo. And she said to her friend, she said, all I can do is sit in my apartment with all the boxes and cry. That's all I can do. And her friend said, you know what? You're acting out the archetypal pattern of Psyche and Eros. You are grieving. So part of the crying with all this stuff is sorting through one's emotions, but it's also about sorting through your options. Like, what are my options right now? And let's get, down about it, is that when we lose a love, or when we lose someone, regardless if it's an intimate or a family or whatever, don't you have to sort through all their stuff? I mean, really, you have to sort through the boxes and the furniture, and you have to figure out what to do with all this. And I remember when my mother died, my father, a few days after he died, he said, I really want you to go through the closets. I want you to go through everything. And I was like, okay. And I thought, this is a big project. And I called one of my girlfriends that I knew was the most organized person that I knew. And she was my aunt, in a sense. And so she sat with me. It's like, keep, give away, pass on to a grandchild. Keep, give away, pass on to a grandchild. And we just went through the system, and everything was done really in, my mother actually didn't have that much stuff either, to be honest, but we went through it very quickly. So the sorting through the seeds is about taking stock. The second task she gives her is to get golden fleece from sheep. And it's a very special gold that's on these sheep. And so she again, I can't do it. She cries, and she goes and she looks, and here these sheep, and they're fighting and they're beating each other. And she's like, how am I supposed to get in the middle of this and take off the golden fleece? I can't do it. So she cries, and the reed of the river says, hey, all you have to do is wait until they're tired. They'll lay down, take a nap, and you take the golden fleece. Okay, so she does that, and she has it. The golden fleece represents the self, of being yourself, of owning yourself, of knowing yourself, even in a relationship and also on the soul's journey. So we are an individual person, right? We have our purpose in life, and we're shining with that, and we're moving forward with that. Now, here's the deal, is she could have jumped in and fought to get this fleece, but instead, she waited until they went to sleep, and then she took it. And that, I think, is important, because as far as the soul goes, when it's seeking its individuality, when it's seeking its ego itself, you could jump in and you could fight about it, right? Or you could just wait for your time and then just step in and take it. Third task, you must take a cup and get some water from the river Styx. Well, the problem is the water is running against some great rocks, and she can't get to it. So again, she thinks she can't do it, and an eagle, Zeus's eagle, shows up, gets the cup, gets the water, and brings it to her. The water represents our creativity, it represents our living waters, it represents our talents, and for her, when we put it in a cup, it's expressing as us. We're putting it in our own vehicle. Finally, lastly, the fourth task is the biggest. And this is the one where she actually doesn't get anybody else to do it for her. She has to go, yay, finally. She has to go into the underworld. And she has to get beauty cream from Persephone, who's down there with Hades like 3 or 4 months out of the year. So she's like, all right, I can't do it. So she actually tries to throw herself off a cliff. You know, she figures, oh, that's how I'll get to the underworld. It's like, nope. Here are some coins, and here is some cake for the 3-headed dog, and here's some coins to pay the ferryman. Here's the deal, though. When you are down in the underworld, you cannot help anybody. You cannot stop and help anybody. So she has her coins. She pays her coin to go across the river Styx. She has a piece of cake. She feeds it to the 3-headed dog. She gets the cream. She comes back. And while she's going, people are just pulling at her. Please help me. Please help me. I don't have a coin for the ferryman. All you have to do is hold my hand and pull me across. Please. And she kept on holding to her coin and to the cake, and she helped no one and came back up. This is also a very important step in the journey. So going into the underworld, as many of you know, represents what? The dark night of the soul. It represents hitting bottom. It represents loss. We all go there in our lives. It's part of the process, and we come back out again. It is also a transition period. And Jean Shinoda Bolen had this to say about this process. She said, people in transition often have limited amounts of strength, health, or energy as they go into the underworld. You ever been in the underworld where you're grieving? It's like I've heard friends who are grieving say, you know what? I just have no energy to socialize, to go to parties. I can't make plans because I don't know what I'm going to do, and I don't know how I'm going to react. For example, the story of Psyche speaks to people living with cancer. They say, cancer was a cure for my codependency. Cancer was a way in which I could say no to people, and that I can't do that. The ability to say no is one of the challenges for a feeling man or a feminine psyche. So she helps no one, and she has her beauty cream. Aren't you proud of Psyche? It's like, yay, she's finally done it, right? Wrong. So she's finally gone through the 4 tasks. She really wants to get Eros back into her life. And then she's thinking, you know what? I have this pretty great a beauty cream. And if Aphrodite wants it, it's probably pretty powerful. I think I'm gonna put it on myself. So she opens up the beauty cream, which she's not supposed to do, and instead there's a sleeping potion that sends her into a death-like sleep. She was conscious, now she's unconscious, But she's not in this story alone. So Eros, and you have to understand that Eros' mother was Aphrodite, and he really didn't confront her because he's carrying on kind of like this sneaky relationship with her this whole time. He comes back, he whisks her up to Mount Olympus, and he says, I love this woman, and I am going to wake her up, and I want her to be immortal. And the gods agree. And so Psyche awakens, and she is immortal. She becomes a goddess. So when we stop and look at this story again as the story of our soul's unfoldment, we are first unconscious. We may be in this wonderful bliss state, and then we are awakened, yes? And we must go through different tasks, whether it be sorting through what our gifts and our abilities are, using our creativity, learning to express and be the self that we are, and being willing to face darkness, to face our own darkness, and to face the darkness in the world. This is also the story, as I said, the pattern of relationship. It begins with the two of us. We see, and it's this little cocoon where we're off in our own worlds, and then we move into a conscious relationship. There are tasks that we must take to become conscious. But when we say yes to love, when we agree to follow the path of love, we are liberated. We are liberated into love. Because love, whether it's with a partner or a child or a friend or a coworker or a family member, will transform us. Like Psyche, we will become the butterfly. Because when we say yes to love, we don't know where the path is going to take us. I love the way Gibran says it when he said, when love beckons to you, follow him, though his ways are hard and steep. And when his wings enfold you, yield to him, though the sword hidden among his pinions may wound you. And when he speaks to you, believe in him, though his voice may shatter your dreams as the north wind lays waste the garden. For even as love crowns you, so will love crucify you. Even as it is for your growth, it is also for your pruning. Even as it ascends your heights, so it shall descend to your roots and shake them. Is that not what love has done to you in your life? And yet, it's Valentine's Day. And we say yes to love, yes? We know that just as Psyche and Eros went through a transformation, so we go through a transformation, because it is the purification of the soul. It is februalia. And when we're willing to surrender to love, it will take us on a quest. It will lead us to Psyche, the butterfly, the transformative experience of life and love and why we are here. Thank you.